showing their powerhouse abilities.
Have you ever been to a Canada Day game?
I have not. I've been to the Canada Baseball Day game, though.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, for those who have been or haven't been, it's quite an experience, obviously. A lot of fun to get the summer started. And, usually, it's a sunny day with the dome open, wearing the unique red jerseys. I've been to 3 in my life, and the Blue Jays are 2-1 in those games, I believe. I went to the one in 2014 against the Brewers. They ended up winning. The next year against the Red Sox, they won, and I went to one a couple years ago against the Red Sox. They lost that one.
The Red Sox game was fun.
Sorry?
The Red Sox game was very fun, I believe. 2015,
yeah. I think Justin Smoke hit 2 home runs from both sides of the plate. That
yeah.
I guess Blue Jays fans getting to know Justin Smoke at first. So, yeah, it was a really exciting game, I remember. It's certainly a fun atmosphere, and especially when you're winning, like the Blue Jays did, it's a lot of fun. And the first day, it's not the first day of summer because school usually ends about a week before that, but it's sort of the introduction to summer, and you always like it. And it's certainly a fun times, which those times have been far between for this Blue Jays team. So anytime you can get one of those, always good to savor. But we're gonna pivot into why the Blue Jays ended up winning 3 of 4. And I'm going to get you started here. You mentioned a lot of guys who had really big performances, but 2 guys in particular that I was really impressed with was Danny Jansen and Freddie Galvis. Danny Jansen, obviously, we know, and we talked about in our last podcast, had struggled pretty much the whole season, but we're seeing signs of life from Danny. In his last 8 games, he's hitting .379 with 3 home runs, 10 RBIs, an OPS close to 1,200. So some definite signs of life for Danny Jansen after was a really disappointing start to the season up until really last weekend. And during that whole weekend, he had a walk-off home run, I believe it was on the Saturday game. So it's good to see his bat finally make the trip up north and sort of get back into the player that we thought he was coming into the season.
Yeah, and last week, it was funny how ironic it was that we mentioned in the podcast last Thursday. We mentioned how Danny Jansen was struggling as of late, and was there a case to send him down to AAA Buffalo, maybe to season him up? But then we saw the list of candidates that can replace him up in Toronto, and Reese McGuire is not having a good year, and players like in AA New Hampshire, Riley Adams, are far away from the big leagues. So we thought we'd give Danny Jansen the chance to start heating up at the plate, and he's done just that. His batting average has moved up 30 points from the stretch from June 21st, and he started at 166, and now he's all the way up at 197, I believe he is. And he hit that walk-off home run, and he's also hit 4 home runs during that stretch, so showing his power abilities. And we know Danny Jansen has that power ability on top of his solid defense behind the plate, so he's really turning into his own right now. And certainly, there's also a case, I believe there should be a case that he should be moved up in the batting order right now. He's been batting 8th or 9th for majority of the year, and I feel like with Danny Jansen's power supply, and Charlie Montoya on how he's always moving the batting line up and down, not really giving players a chance to stick there for many games in a row, I believe that the Jays should put him a little bit closer to maybe even 6th or 7th to really get dialed in and really start seeing the fastballs at the plate and really start crushing these pitches. And we know Danny can hit, and he's always hit at every single level, and as soon as he got those glasses. So it's been fun to watch Danny ever since June 21st. You really get dialed in and get to his own.
I've actually been really impressed with Freddie Galvis this season. I mean, coming into the year, he was signed to a really modest 1-year, $4 million deal with a player option. Pardon me, I think it's a club option, actually, for next season.
Yeah.
And you look at the stats on the year, just like from a totality stat. Last night, obviously, had a good game, went 3 for 3. He got on base 4 of the 5 times, and the 5th time where he didn't get on base, he had a sac fly. But overall in the year, 271, 768 OPS, 14 home runs, and 42 RBIs, which leads the team. We know that he can play a competent shortstop, which I would say that he hasn't quite been as impressive as he was last season at shortstop. He's still been very good and very serviceable, a lot more serviceable than the guys that Jays had running out the last couple of years. But I thought he was really going to be a glove-only type of guy, but offensively, he's really held his own. You could say he's been one of the Blue Jays' best hitters this whole season, and he's got 14 home runs, which is, obviously we're in July, so if you sort of stretch out to a whole year. You're looking at a guy who's going to hit 25 plus. I mean, I don't know if he's going to do that, but certainly 20 plus home runs from a guy that you really didn't expect that is really nice. And he did hit 13 last year to his credit, which is not too shabby considering the big ballpark out there in San Diego. But it's hard to not be impressed with the way he's hit. And he sort of had a roller coaster season. He started off really hot. He was moved up to the leadoff spot, then really struggled, and now he's back on top again. And now, when you look back at the contract he signed, like I mentioned, a 1 year, $4 million deal with a club option, this is looking like a really nice signing for Mark Shapiro and Ross Atkins, especially with him producing and playing an everyday role, something that they just did not have the luxury of at shortstop the last few seasons.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Freddie Galvis has been amazing for this ball club, and coming into the year, we weren't really thinking much of it. Signing Freddie Galvis, a cold December afternoon, or January afternoon, I believe. Many fans just passed it by. Another shortstop, another depth piece, but he came into the season firing hot out of the plate, and he's been having a really nice time at the plate as of late. As you mentioned, he's hitting 271, 14 home runs, and looking at his batting average, on-base percentage, slugging percentage from the previous years, he's gone up in every single category, and it's been a career year for Freddie Galvis as of the plate. He's been he cooled down in the month of June and towards the end of May, but he's really been dialed in right now. And me and my buddy were talking about Freddie Galvis, and he was talking about how good he is, and he was talking about like maybe we should keep him, and I'm like. And then I just, like you just mentioned it right now, and it just came to my mind that he does have a club option. So, I believe the Jays should prioritize to keep Freddie Galvis with the big league club, and should really explore to keeping him at shortstop. He's been a really nice defensive player. As you said, he's not been as good as last year, but he's been serviceable, and he's better than what we put out there as Gurriel towards the end of the season, and now Gurriel is in left field, and he's certainly better than the Jose Reyes of the days. Oh, God.
Or Ryan Goins or Darwin Barney.
Yeah, those were the days. But he's really coming into his own right now in the field and on the plate, and he's just, I think we failed to mention that he's a mentor for all these Latino ball players on the team. Gurriel, he was the one player that helped Gurriel towards his struggles and towards his second base throwing mishaps, and he would be out there every day with Gurriel throwing a ball to first base, just getting the fundamentals down, and he's been acting like a big brother to Gurriel, and just a fan of the game, a learner of the game, and just an overall great dude who's having a really good year, and the Jays should keep him if they don't trade him at the trade deadline. Do you believe he is a candidate to be traded, though?
I was actually going to ask you about this just right now. I have an interesting take on this. Well, not really a take, but sort of a thought. Right now you have two middle infielders who, and those two are Freddie Galvis and Eric Sogard, two guys who are having career seasons this season, and two guys who likely won't be there when you're competing in the next few years. They're likely short-term options, but obviously, as I just mentioned, with the way that they're playing the last couple of years, this season, with the way each of them have been playing, maybe you ought to trade one of them, considering that each of them, their value is probably at an all-time high right now. I mean, you're not going to get a lot for either, I don't think, but would you really consider possibly moving one of these players with how well they've been playing?
Yeah, no doubt about it. Brandon Drury certainly will not fetch you any value. He did have that good game yesterday.
Oh, no, I was talking about Sogard and Galvis.
Yeah, I was going to get into that.
Oh, okay, sorry.
So yeah, Brandon Drury is certainly not going to get you any value in terms of trading him at the deadline. I believe, is he a free agent next year?
Brandon Drury?
Yeah.
Let me get back to you on that, but keep on with your take, and
yeah.
I'll pass the lead.
But Eric Sogard, I believe he is more likely to be traded than Freddie Galvis. I believe Freddie Galvis plays at prime position in shortstop, and there's not a player that could fill that void unless Bo Bichette, who is high-rising in AAA right now, comes up and takes that spot from him, and I don't believe, unless he is a September call-up, would do so. So I believe that Eric Sogard, who has been amazing, absolutely amazing for this team, he would be the one traded. He'd certainly fetch you, not a blue-chip prospect, but would certainly fetch you something along higher than what Curtis Granderson fetched you last year. And I believe that one prospect, Demi I forget his last name. Pardon me, but he just won the Arizona thing. Not the Arizona, but like the Rookie Ball Player of the Month. So, congrats to him. But carrying on, Eric Sogard certainly is hitting .307 right now with 380 on-base percentage, 9 home runs, which is a career high, and certainly the nerd power would fetch you some sort of value in a high second. Would you say a high demanding second base market? Who today we can note that Eric Sogard is playing right field, so super utility Eric Sogard is on the trade block.
Alright, so before I comment on that, Brandon Drury is not a free agent. He's got 2 more years of club eligibility, so he would be under club control until after the 2021 season. But between Freddie Galvis and Eric Sogard, yeah, I think you could trade Eric Sogard because he's been having a better year than Freddie Galvis, despite the fact that Galvis has also been playing really well, as we mentioned. But the thing is, I feel that it's sort of been a very small sample size, only a few months of either of these guys playing really well. And Eric Sogard, while he may be having a better year this year, you look at the totality of his career, he's sort of been, as you mentioned, a utility sort of 25th man on the roster. And this year he's come along strong, while Freddie Galvis, on the other hand, not been as impressive as Sogard. He's been more of an everyday major league player over the last few seasons. So while, again, he's not having as good of a season, he might not have more trade value considering that he's just been a better baseball player for the longer part of his career. That's just a thought that entered my mind. Like, what do you think about that?
Yeah, that is true. Eric Sogard did not have a very good year last year. He did have a very good year in 2017 with Milwaukee, but if you want to look at a long-term, flexible point of view, Freddie Galvis would be the smart player to attract teams in terms of where you're going to get in terms of value, where you're going to get in terms of defense. Eric Sogard, as you said, is he even eligible for the batting average in terms of leading the Blue Jays or not yet?
I'm not sure. I believe the qualification for batting average and like batting title in general would be 3 plate appearances for every team game. So I think you'd have to sort of do the math on that one, which I mean that'll probably be for like another time. Maybe we'll tweet it out or say it later during a break. But no, I don't think he qualifies. But that doesn't take away from the fact that he's just been absolutely amazing. I mean, he was signed to a minor league deal, didn't even make the big league roster. Was really just supposed to be sort of a fill-in player there, and he's turned out to be an everyday leadoff hitter for this team, which is just an incredible value considering they basically got him for nothing, a minor league deal.
Yeah, and I was about to DM you the other day. I found my post of when I posted Eric Sogard, the signing of Eric Sogard on the account, and it was like minor league deal, and everyone went crazy. It was the first signing of the off season. People were like, "Oh my God, Shapiro and Atkins signed so much depth," and it was like, look at him now. He's just such an amazing player for the team. And yeah, if you want to go, coming back to the point, if you want to go in a safe long-term plan, teams would be more opposed to trading for Freddie Galvis, but I don't think the Blue Jays would want him gone at this point. As I said, I'm going to stick to my point of him being a shortstop, a prime position. But Eric Sogard, even though he's having such an amazing year this year, there isn't much to back off of that. But nonetheless, it's an amazing year from Eric Sogard, and he should fetch some sort of value.
And also, like, can we please stop that with the everyone getting upset at minor league signings? I mean, I don't know if this is an entire MLB fan base thing or is it just the Blue Jays, but I've noticed, and back when I used to run the account, people would get so upset when the Blue Jays would sign these guys to minor league deals. I mean, obviously, these guys aren't good. I mean, they're not great baseball players, but it's a minor league deal. You got to fill out your roster somehow. I remember when the Blue Jays signed Deck McGuire, I made a post about it, and everyone was ripping on Deck McGuire, and the poor guy had just come off a pretty decent year with Cincinnati, and it was just supposed to be a depth piece. I don't know why people get so upset when these guys make depth pieces, because that's what you have to do. That's what baseball is. You got to fill out your spring training roster. It doesn't mean they're going to make the team. It's pretty much a lottery ticket. You're not really paying much for it. It's a really low risk, and it just that just needs to stop. It just needs to stop. People need to stop getting upset at when people make minor league signings, because every now and then you get an Eric Sogard, and look who's laughing now.
Yeah, just go check out the Buffalo Bison's roster right now and see if we have enough depth. I'll tell you if we need more of those signings.
Yeah. All right. So now we're gonna sort of pivot a bit We mentioned about how impressive the Blue Jays' offense was this